Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is the account with the news summary for day 376 of the war in Ukraine. First up, I made a small mistake in yesterday's report, saying the report was for day 373 instead of day 375. Apologies for that. Today I have 3 articles I want to point out. Also, as there have been a lot of updates regarding Bakhmut and nothing major was reported along other parts of the front line, instead of the usual flashpoints along the front, I will have a special Bakhmut segment today. Additionally, I will group the updates on the video of the Ukrainian POW execution by Russian soldiers into its own segment. Otherwise, I grouped everything into the usual situation inside Ukraine, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, and international developments. And now, before we start the news, the Bakhmut segment. President Volodymyr Zelensky held a meeting of the staff of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief today. Particular attention was paid to the situation in Bakhmut. Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, and commander of the Hortitsia Operational and Strategic Group of Troops Oleksandr have said that the defensive operation and further strengthening of positions in Bakhmut must be continued. President Volodymyr Zelensky and Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's Armed Forces Valery Zaluzhny appear to have had a dispute on how the military should handle the situation in Bakhmut. This was reported to German tabloid Bild by unnamed sources within the Ukrainian political leadership. Major General Bruno Hofbauer of the Armed Forces of Austria believes that the city of Bakhmut will not fall in the near future. Colonel General Oleksandr Syrskyi, commander of the ground forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, once again visited the frontline city of Bakhmut and said that fighting there has reached the highest tension. The Wall Street Journal wrote that the goal of the Wagner private military company was not so much to capture Bakhmut as to exhaust the Ukrainian military. To some extent, this plan worked, as in 8 months of fighting for the city, Ukraine lost some of the troops needed for the spring offensive. Wagner mercenaries have mounted the flag of the PMC on the T-34 tank monument in eastern Bakhmut, just 500 meters from the Bakhmutivka River, suggesting Ukrainian forces have pulled out of the area. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that the fall of Bakhmut would not be a significant setback for the Ukrainian military. The city of Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine is more symbolic than operational. Its fall would not necessarily mean that Moscow had regained the momentum in its military efforts. NATO intelligence estimates that Russian troops lost at least 5 fighters for every Ukrainian soldiers who died defending Bakhmut. An official stressed that the ratio of 5-1 is a reasonable estimate based on intelligence data. He added that Ukraine also suffered significant losses defending the city. Additionally, President Zelensky has ordered the reinforcement of Bakhmut, saying no part of Ukraine should be abandoned. And now for the updates on the execution of a Ukrainian POW by Russian soldiers. A gruesome video has emerged online showing the execution of a Ukrainian POW by Russian soldiers. The video shows the soldier smoking and saying "Glory to Ukraine" before being executed at close range. While I've seen the video, I will not share or show it for obvious reasons. Andy Yermak, head of the Ukrainian President's office, condemned the killing, saying this is an example of the national insignificance and weakness of Russians. President Volodymyr Zelensky, in a reaction to the killing, promised that the killers will be found and brought to justice. Meanwhile, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba called on the Office of the International Criminal Court prosecutor to investigate the circumstances of the execution. And now for the first article I want to highlight, titled "My shortest distance to the enemy was half a meter. Oleksandr, callsign mechanic." When Russia's invasion started, many volunteers and expats decided to travel to Ukraine and join the International Legion for the defense of Ukraine. Over time, a rather unique team has gathered. This is an interview with Oleksandr, a platoon commander in the 2nd International Legion, known under the callsign Mechanic. I found it highly interesting and wanted to share it with you. Moving on to the second article I wanted to point out, titled Interview, Minister of War, Reznikov about Zelensky and the country. Everyone from the age of 18 must learn to shoot. In this interview, Oleksii Reznikov talks about many issues he faced over the course of the Russian invasion. Disagreements with Budanov, the food procurement scandal, salaries for military personnel, and many more. The interview is incredibly long, but also very interesting. Please check it out. And finally, the last article I wanted to show you, titled Brigade that spent 2 months in Bakhmut. It was becoming harder each week. This is a story detailing the experiences of a Ukrainian platoon spending 2.5 months inside Bakhmut. Journalist Asami Terajima spent 5 days with a platoon of Commander Ole, recording the stories of these ordinary men who dropped their everyday lives to defend their country. I found this article inspiring and hope you will enjoy it as well. And now for a look at all the minor updates out of Ukraine. During the night, Russia launched 15 Shahed UAVs at Ukraine. The Ukrainian Air Force reportedly shot down 13. 2 teenage cousins from Kherson, who were illegally taken to the territory of the Russian Federation by the Russian occupiers, have been brought back to Ukraine. The National Police of Ukraine has notified 3 Russian occupiers that they are under suspicion for firing on civilians in Kyiv Oblast. Investigators have identified the 3 members of the Russian military who were allegedly involved in the shooting of Ukrainian civilians trying to escape Irpin in March 2022. Next up, the latest regarding the situation in the occupied territories. The mayor of Melitopol, Ivan Fedorov, stated on March 5th that 2 explosions in the occupied city of Melitopol possibly killed hundreds of Russian soldiers stationed in the city. What is known? 2 explosions were reported in Melitopol during the night of March 4th to 5th, however, no further information is available. Ramzan Kadyrov, the Russian-appointed leader of occupied Chechen Republic of Ichkeria, began to recruit soldiers from the army of the Donetsk People's Republic into his own forces. It is suggested he is trying to increase his power. Volodymyr Konstantinov, the head of the Parliament of Occupied Crimea, stated that signs using the Latin alphabet must be removed as they are a result of westernization. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu has visited the occupied city of Mariupol. He inspected infrastructure projects, toured a medical center, a new residential district constructed by the military, and was briefed on the construction of a pipeline that will supply water to settlements in the region. Moving on to the news updates from Russia and Belarus. Russia currently has 15 warships on combat duty in the Black Sea, 3 of which are missile carriers with a total salvo of 16 cruise missiles. There are also reports of 1 battleship being in the Sea of Azov. The Kremlin held discussions about the 2024 presidential elections in Russia. It expects better results for Vladimir Putin than in 2018. The Russian authorities will try to preserve the high level of support and consolidation of citizens. The Kremlin also thinks that after the integration of the Russia-occupied territories of Ukraine to Russia, the number of voters allegedly rose and the level of support of Putin in these regions is allegedly high. Belarusian authorities have ordered the security forces to conduct searches on those who were tried or punished under political administrative articles from 2020 to 2023. This is allegedly a response to the reports of the damaged Russian A-50 at Machuliske Air Base. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. The Council of Europe Commissioner for Human Rights, Dunja Mijatovic, stated that there is a need for the creation of a mechanism to bring back Ukrainian children taken to Russia. The Lithuanian Defense Minister, Arvydas Anušauskas, met with the First Deputy Defense Minister of Ukraine, Lieutenant General Oleksandr Pavliuk, who arrived in Lithuania on Monday. During the meeting, Anušauskas stated that his country is already preparing the next aid package for Ukraine. And now for the intelligence report segment, starting as usual with the UK Ministry of Defense. The Russian military has continued to respond to heavy armored vehicle losses by deploying 60-year-old T-62 main battle tanks, MBT. There is a realistic possibility that even units of the 1st Guards Tank Army, 1st GTA, supposedly Russia's premier tank force, will be re-equipped with T-62s to make up for previous losses. The 1st GTA had previously been due to receive the next generation T-14 Armata MBT from 2021. In recent days, Russian BTR-50 armored personnel carriers, first fielded in 1954, have also been identified deployed in Ukraine for the first time. Since summer 2022, approximately 800 T-62s have been taken from storage and some have received upgraded sighting systems, which will highly likely improve their effectiveness at night. However, both these vintage vehicle types will present many vulnerabilities on the modern battlefield, including the absence of modern explosive reactive armor. A look at the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. Today, the Institute has published an abbreviated campaign update. This report analyzes the ongoing battle for Bakhmut and Russian prospects for further offensive efforts. Ukrainian forces may be conducting a limited fighting withdrawal in eastern Bakhmut and are continuing to inflict high casualties against the advancing mixed Russian forces. Russian mill bloggers have also lowered their expectations of Russian forces' ability to launch additional offensives, which would likely culminate whether or not Russian forces actually capture Bakhmut. If Russian forces manage to secure Bakhmut, they could then attempt renewed pushes towards one or both of Konstantinivka or Sloviansk, but would struggle with endemic personnel and equipment constraints. The likely imminent culmination of the Russian offensive around Bakhmut before or after its fall, the already culminated Russian offensive around Vuhledar, and the stalling Russian offensive in Luhansk Oblast are likely setting robust conditions for a future Ukrainian counteroffensive. The researchers pointed out that geolocated footage showed that Wagner Group forces continued to make advances in northeastern Bakhmut and advanced near the Stupki railway station on March 5th. The analysts are further convinced that the Ukrainian defense of Bakhmut remains strategically sound as it continues to consume Russian manpower and equipment as long as Ukrainian forces do not suffer excessive casualties. The update also said that Ukrainian forces are unlikely to withdraw from Bakhmut all at once and may pursue a gradual fighting withdrawal to exhaust Russian forces through continued urban warfare. The urban conditions and river may benefit Ukraine in a similar way to the urban fighting and withdrawal that occurred in Severodonetsk and Lysychansk in Luhansk Oblast, which effectively ended Russia's offensive in Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast in the summer of last year, the Institute wrote. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The Russian Federation does not give up its intention regarding the occupation of Ukraine and continues to conduct full-scale armed aggression. The main efforts are concentrated on conducting offensive actions in the Kupiansk, Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Shahtarsk directions. The enemy is trying to break through the defenses of our troops on the Kupiansk and Liman directions. He led unsuccessful offensive actions in the direction of the settlements of Reznikivka, Nevske, Bilohorivka, and Fedorivka. In the direction of Bakhmut, the enemy, regardless of losses, does not stop storming the city of Bakhmut and its surroundings. The enemy also led an offensive in the areas of Zalisnyanske, Dubovo-Vasilivka, and Ivanivske settlements. The enemy was unsuccessful. In the Avdiivka and Shahtarske directions, the enemy carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the directions of Krasnohorivka, Kamyanka, Avdiivka, Severnye, Permovaiske, Nevelske, Marinka, and Popieda settlements of the Donetsk Oblast. The enemy is defending in the Zaporizhia and Kherson directions. The enemy suffers significant losses in personnel every day, so he does not stop taking measures to replenish them. Recently, in temporarily occupied Donetsk, the military commissariats received an instruction to clarify the personal credentials of reserve officers under the age of 65 inclusive, as well as soldiers, sergeants, and warrant officers under the age of 50. A military medical commission works in the Donbas Hotel in the city of Kadivka in the temporarily occupied Luhansk Oblast. The work of the VLK is aimed at recognizing wounded servicemen of the 2nd Army Corps of the Russian occupation forces as fit for their subsequent return to service. In this way, the Russian military leadership is trying to quickly restore its units. And that wraps up today's report. If you're interested in any of the articles and want to read up on them, you can find links to them in the description. If you enjoyed the report and found it informative, please consider sharing it with others and giving me a like. I hope you will join me again tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.